peer-to-peer software, the best place, I guess, to start would be just a bit of background on the company, bit of history, when it was formed, what it was, formed to do, and some key milestones, to date, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, we're actually I always describe as a little bit of a strange beast in the enterprise software space and around the world. We are a 30-year-old private company. We started in 1993, and like a lot of tech companies, especially back then, very traditional, I guess, American garage startup concept. We had a founder, Paul Marsala, who's still with us. He's our chairman and founder to this day, who had a personal problem. He was a consultant for other companies, and he wanted to synchronize data across his different machines as he was working for other companies. And back then, file replication, especially real-time file replication, wasn't available broadly in the market space. And so even just between his simple Windows laptops or desktops and servers, he wanted to synchronize data. And so instead of carrying, I don't know, for those who were around back then, carrying around this cable, there used to be this yellow cable created by a company called LapLink, and synchronizing data through that cable. He wanted to write something just a little more streamlined and simple. And so he created the first versions of peer software replication, which we call the Peer Sync, which we still sell today, actually. And I think it's 20-something version. So that's how it started. And over the years, obviously, we've grown and expanded and added to our product line and other storage support that we've had. So that's kind of like the evolution of the company. And we've actually grown alongside a lot of our customers. Well, 1993, our customers were very small. And then as they grew and they started buying larger, more complex storage systems, they would always reach back out to us and say, hey, can you connect to NetApp? Like, we're buying a larger storage system for NetApp. Can you connect to that? We said, sure, we can do that. So we integrated with that. And then and the other customers will come to us. We didn't buy NetApp, but we bought some EMC NAS. Can you connect to that? And so, yeah, we can connect to that. And obviously, over the last few years, the last decade or more, customers are saying, hey, we're now starting to journey to the cloud and Azure and AWS and maybe even GCP. Can you connect to that? And we began connecting to those storage systems. And so our product line and support has moved along the way. And alongside of that growth of product line, we've actually grown as an organization as customers moved from US. We've grown out of the US, a base to like Europe and APAC. We've kind of like started moving and growing offices there as well. So we're a reflection of our customers, quite honestly.
Yeah, and during that 30-year period, I mean, back then data was obviously very, very important. But if it's possible to say in that 30-year journey, it's become even more critical to where we are today, and what concerns a lot of companies back then. But I say you maybe didn't, the business didn't go bust if the data wasn't quite available immediately, but now it potentially does. So the emphasis has changed. But so data accessibility and speed of access are critical in today's environment. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's 2 points there. The first is we're all conditioned to be a little bit less patient these days, right? We're like the always on, always available. I want all my information right here, right now. We're conditioned to be that way today. So it wasn't that the data was less important back then, or access to information was less important. It was just that perhaps we were more patient with it. And so we go, hey, it's tech. The data is out there and it's big. And if I access it, it takes me 15 to 30 minutes. It is what it is. That's how we were conditioned back then and quite honestly, that was all we could expect because technology back then, and especially bandwidth speeds, and that was all that was available. But as over the years, obviously over the last decades, we as humans have been conditioned to be, want things more snappy immediately. So that's the first thing. So that trend has allowed us to grow as a business because we follow that trend. We make data more available regardless of where the end users are. And on that next point, that's the second trend. Over the last decades as well, globalization has really, it started many, many decades ago, but it's really been more and more entrenched today. It's very normal now for people to say, We have offices, not our main offices are either in Europe or USA, but we have satellite offices in India or Philippines, or we're doing some subcontracting work in Central America or South America. And so you have all this distributed, globalized workforce, and COVID only, the pandemic only exacerbated that, right? Where people can just, hey, I want to move. I don't want to live in, let's say, London or Los Angeles anymore. Rent's really expensive. I want to go somewhere else. And so that trend of globalization actually even expanded further, expanded more with the pandemic. And so having all these people everywhere requires now to put data everywhere so that people can access it snappy and immediately for just productivity's sake.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the situation you've described has put under pressure what we might call the traditional, which I think you described so maybe as active, passive, high availability technology. So obviously they were fit for purpose, shall we say, 30 years ago, but for the reasons you've just outlined, they are no longer able to cope with what we might say are the digital demands. Is that right?
No, absolutely. So no offense to a lot of companies that still use active passive technologies, or other vendors who create active passive technologies. But in our view, in our worldview, active passive is quite honestly quite dated, quite very traditional. For just to describe, right? If you have an active system and then a passive system, you're already using the storage capacity to copy data from your active node to your passive node. You're already using that storage capacity on your passive side. So instead of making it active passive, I always ask customers, do you want it active active instead, so that end users, regardless of where they're at, can utilize the closest local copy? And the question I always get from customers is like, is that a trick question? Why would I ever want active passive when I can have active active if there's no additional costs I have to incur? You're saying that I'm already paying for this storage and I just need to turn it active instead of active passive, and now increase productivity and efficiency for my end users, regardless of where they're at, because I could also load balance across the systems. Yeah, I want to do that. So I think first and foremost, it's not that people never wanted active in the past. They just didn't think that it was possible. But with the advancements in technology, with companies like ourselves promoting the concepts of active, and the trends that we're seeing, people just want data faster, as well as people being everywhere. Active is definitely, I think, where all technologies will go, and the old world of active passive should go away. As an example, if you had a choice between flying between London and New York, would you rather fly? Or would you rather take a boat? Well, assuming that you want to get there as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Boats are fantastic, very leisurely and all that stuff. But if you want to get there as fast as possible, you take a plane or you take a boat. Another trick question, of course, the plane. And similarly, active versus active passive.
So in terms of the sort of under the hoods, what's different with active? What's the topology, if you like, of an active system look like? And I think you've alluded generally, but crucially, I guess, the major benefits, speed being one of them, but what are the significant benefits that end users can expect to obtain?
So from an underlying technology perspective, let's focus mainly on, because there's active for applications, and then there for infrastructure, and there's active for data. We focus on the data, the files, specifically the files, unstructured data files. So from an active perspective for files, right, for storage, it's not very different at a base level than your traditional active passive, because active passive, the underlying technology first and foremost is some sort of replication. You need to replicate your data from your active node to your passive node. Now, from an active scenario, you still need replication as well. The difference is most active passive technologies will say this is a read-write copy and this is a read-only copy. So they turn off, right? They turned off the ability to write to the passive node. That's fine. But in an active world, you make it read-write and read-write. So when we replicate it over, we keep it read-write. Now, when we do that, there's one additional technology on top of the replication and turning it read-write that you definitely need if you can have active, and that's version conflict prevention. The reason why most people used to have active passive, outside of them not thinking that active active was available, was because they go, hey, I don't want any version conflicts. If I have all my data in one site and everybody accesses that one site, we don't bump into each other when we're working on a file, right? Philip, if you're opening a file off of one site, and then one of your colleagues opens up that file, that same file off that same server, they're going to get the very common, this file is currently in use. Do you want a read-only copy? That's a typical message in a single server environment, single storage environment. In a distributed active world, you need to be able to mirror that same mechanism. As soon as you open the file, Philip, on this site, some other mechanism has to lock down that corresponding mirrored file on another site. And then that's where technologies like us come in. Not only do we integrate real-time replication or synchronization across the sites, but we also incorporate integrated distributed file locking. So as soon as files open, we see it, and then we lock down the corresponding file. So on top of the baseline replication, which everybody understands, you just need to make sure that you turn the other copy to read-write and integrate distributed file locking on top. And it's as simple as that, quite honestly. People think active is very difficult. And I always say, no, it's not that difficult. It's actually quite simple.
And in terms of the solutions you offer, I mean, do you have a whole portfolio of them, or is it just the one product, or just describe what it is you do in terms of the how your solution portfolio, as I say, is it a single one with lots of bits to it, or just you do have different products, if you like?
Well, we have a flagship solution. So today we have three main products, right? With one flagship solution. Our flagship solution is Pure Global File Service, Pure GFS for short. It obviously plays into the world of distributed file systems or global file systems. People use those terms interchangeably a lot of times. But that's our flagship enterprise solution. And Pure GFS is what I'm describing here. It gives you the ability to create a modern distributed file system across all your edge sites, across all your data center assets, as well as your cloud storage, right? Gives you that active storage infrastructure around the world. And within it, I always say there's 6 main feature sets or capabilities. The first one is obviously cross-platform support. Which spans across all your major storage platforms. So you can mix and match your storage. The second feature is real-time replication at a Delta level. We replicate only the changes within the file. The third bit is integrated distributed file locking, like I was saying, to prevent version conflicts. The fourth feature set is DFS namespace integration, because that's critically important for our customers that have a global presence. They want one namespace or one area that they go to, like every end user goes to, and then from that namespace, it'll just point them to the closest server, which has that asset for them. So, and that digital namespace also acts as the auto failover and fail back mechanism. So if one storage node within the distributed ecosystem falls out, the namespace will automatically reroute the end users to another site seamlessly without any IT intervention. And then our software then will fail them back whenever that storage node comes back online. So that's the fourth capability. The fifth capability within our feature set, still within Pure GFS, is edge file caching. So the first thing a lot of people think is like, active, that's a lot of data. If I need to replicate all of my data around the world, that's a lot of data I need to buy, a lot of storage. And that's where file caching comes in. We always say with our solutions, you can be very flexible. You can replicate as much or as little as you like, right? And if you want to replicate everything, you can replicate everything. Or if you just want to replicate a subset, the hot data, that's where edge caching comes in. So that's the fifth data set. And then obviously the last bit is in around security. You can't have a storage conversation these days without having a security conversation at the same time. And so we built into our Pure GFS solution, malicious event detection, what we call MED for short, where we add an extra layer of monitoring and alerting for our customers when we see bad patterns of file activity, things that just don't look normal. And from there, we monitor and then alert them. And if they wish, based on a policy-based engine, stop replication, kill agent, disable host. So that's the main flagship Pure GFS. And then obviously, whenever you talk about anything in and around storage, our other product lines come into play as well. Migration. We also offer a standalone migration product line for customers who just wants a very simple one-to-one replication, as well as file analytics, which right now on our website, you'll see a solution called File System Analyzer for customers like, hey, before you replicate or synchronize or copy, move any data, you want to really know what's in your file system, what's in your storage infrastructure. And the File System Analyzer is a very lightweight tool that customers can download, scan through their systems, and it gives them a great report to truly understand what they have.
Okay, and I did find you referenced your website. I was obviously having a little look before we chat, but I came across something to do with your file management and orchestration, I think, solution. And there was, I think it was a blog, but it was talking about particularly in the health sector. So it'd be fascinating to know sort of why that, why is that such a sweet spot for what you do? If you can talk us through that a bit.
No, health. Actually, interestingly enough, yesterday I actually spent half a day with one of our largest California healthcare organizations. Especially during COVID, when everybody worked from home and people could not collaborate across different hospitals as seamlessly. The having a file synchronization solutions across all the different hospitals and locations was critically important. So for that organization, then we're sitting there on a panel discussion with some other companies that were listening into what did Peer do for them. And it really came down to very simply to two things. Number one was, like many hospitals today, they deploy out virtual desktops. So VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure. And so they wanted to give their doctors a seamless experience wherever the doctor logged in from, whether they logged in from home or they logged in from Hospital 1 or Hospital 2 or Hospital 3 or Hospital 4. And in a VDI world, you have these profiles, right? It's basically how you like all your applications and your desktops and all your icons and apps. You like it set in a certain way. And so for each doctor, for the virtual desktop, they have an image. They have that profile that is associated with them. And they want to give that doctor a seamless experience, regardless of wherever they logged in. And so they use Peer GFS to synchronize. A lot of people think about you're replicating only data, right? Well, a profile is just data too. Right? That is data associated with me, how I like my profile customized. And we replicate that profile across all the hospitals so that wherever they're logging in from, to grab their image of the virtual desktop is a seamless experience. It is the same experience all over the place. Secondarily, we replicate the underlying data that they touch across all the data centers so that when the doctors are accessing their data, they don't have to reach out across the wide area network to access data at another hospital. There's another copy right here so that it's faster. The last thing you want to do is when you're pulling up a patient record and the patient's right in front of you and it's a serious injury and you really need to treat them right away is, oh, hold on, I'm waiting for your files to load. Give me 15 to 20 minutes before I can stop this bleeding or administer this drug. You want to make sure that data is snappy, available, and immediate. So those are the things that we helped them with in California. But we have a lot of other health sector customers like that globally, especially in the UK. I won't name the name, but everybody knows who they are.
I mean, are there other? I mean, clearly, what you're describing is relevant to most organisations in some shape or form. But are there any other particular industry sectors where you think what you're doing is very, a very sort of sweet spot because of the nature of their business, if you like?
The requirement for what we do is very broad-based, like you said. Like every industry pretty much needs it, so long as you have multiple sites and you have teams that are in a distributed environment. You definitely need it. But if I had to name, let's say, the top 5 industries that gravitated to us very more readily than others, definitely healthcare for sure, like we talked about. Anything in the AEC space, the architectural, engineering, construction space. I mean, these are companies a lot of these companies are massive. They have offices in multiple countries, multiple continents around the world. And they have specialists all around the world that access very large files, right? So the CAD files, anybody who works in CAD. So imagine like, while I was in Texas and here in the US, last week, I was working with one of our largest engineering customers. And they're saying, yeah, some of our files are about, 2 gigs in size. So imagine if you have a 2 gig, one file, 2 gig file, and it's sitting only in Texas, and you have an engineer who's in London that needs to access it, pulling and opening a 2 gig file over a wide area network, that's just slow, right? So you want to make sure that distributed. So AEC space for sure. So anybody in AEC or just CAD in general, which if you look at the right next to adjacent sector, media and entertainment, same thing. The media and entertainment space is CAD files as well. The next space that comes very readily to mind, finance. Finance is massive for us. If you take a look at the largest, private equity, venture capital, capital management firms, they all have offices in all the major financial capitals of the world. And so therefore, if they have offices with people in all the major financial capitals of the world, well, they obviously need to distribute a file system so that the data that they're working on and sharing across the site is synchronized. So I'd say that one's another one. And then public sector has been really good to us. You think about what are some of the largest organizations around the world? Governments, right? Governments, military, intelligence communities. We've done a ton there. One of our main offices here in the United States is right outside of Washington, D.C. for a very specific reason, because we do a ton of government and military work as well to synchronize all that data across all those stations or sites.